I've driven over 3,000 miles to photograph icebergs in Newfoundland. We've left most of those behind and have found ourselves on the way to a very special island on the rock called Fogo. My creative struggles continue, but not without the hope that time will renew my spirits. And if that doesn't work, maybe I'm just going to have to steal like an artist. This is episode 6. After a short drive in the sun, I was excited to get to the island with the recent good weather that I was having, which I didn't have during my first visit in 2023. If you've been following along in this series, you'll know that I've been struggling to find satisfaction in my work, and I've fallen into a bit of a creative rut. Okay, maybe it's a serious creative rut, something I'm still struggling with nearly 6 months later and writing this exact script that you're listening to now, which is why these episodes have been so delayed. In an attempt to claw my way out of this hole, I went to the bookstore with no objective, no time restrictions, and I just let my mind wander to whatever caught my eye. This was new for me, but I had exhausted all my other methods I typically use to help in a creative rut, most notably just allowing myself time, which just didn't seem to be working. In my paperback exploration, I was suggested a book by Austin Kleon titled Steal Like an Artist. Notably a seemingly popular book for the creative-minded, I sat down and I dabbled in a few of its chapters, ultimately deciding to purchase it. Throughout my journey here in Fogo Island, I'm going to do as the title says and steal like an artist by sharing a few of the pieces I found most influential in my reading that I hope impact you in the same way that they inspired me. Now, what the heck is Fogo Island and why are we here? Let me show you.
Alright, we have made it to the island. Looks a lot like all the other islands. I would just like to report that as I was wishing for good weather in that voiceover, I'm assuming, the first thing that happened when I got to the island, it started raining. Let's hope that's not a sign for the future weather here.
Well, the good news is, it wasn't a sign for the future weather. The bad news is, it did continue to rain for the rest of the evening. I did get some delicious ice cream though, so that's a plus.
Alright, good morning everyone. The weather this morning, well, during sunrise was complete fogged in, so I went back to sleep. But thankfully, that fog has lifted, and it is just an absolutely beautiful day turning out right now. There are supposed to be some clouds and possibly some overcast coming in, so I'm going to try to make the best of some of this sunshine that we're getting right now and kind of take you around the island, show you why I'm here, show you what I'm here for, and why I think it's so special. All right, you can see it's pretty windy, so hopefully you guys can hear me well enough. But I'm just going to drive around, walk around, a mixture of the two, and take some photographs of some of the architecture, building, and heritage sites here that are on Fogo Island. This stuff is really beautiful. The last time I shot it, it was kind of overcast. The light wasn't great, and this time we have all of the greens and yellows in the scene, whereas last time I did not have that. So it's really nice to come back to some of these spots that I found before that I really liked and take them in completely different conditions. It is pretty windy though, so I'm gonna make the best of it, drive around. I'm gonna show you that montage probably right now.
I am listening. You are the voice whispering in my ear, shining through the bells steady ringing. The words I can't ignore. Wild hearts open door. I was young, I was sure I could hear the singing.
Chapter 7 in Kleon's book is titled, Geography is No Longer Our Master. What's better proof of such a statement than you tuning into this video about a place off the beaten path? Fogo Island is a really unique spot here in Newfoundland because it blends the past and the present all within less than a 20-mile stretch. For the unfamiliar, which I imagine is most of you tuning in, Fogo Island is one of the oldest fishing settlements in Newfoundland. After the cod moratorium in 1992, the economy of the island, just like many spots in Newfoundland, collapsed. Almost 20 years ago, an idea was proposed by Zita Cobb, a native of Fogo Island who went on to find wild success and wanted to develop something to ignite the growth back into the island while convincing people from around the world to come see their beautiful home island of Fogo. The solution, which you're going to see throughout this episode, was to create a boutique 5-star resort along with satellite studios that uplift and support artists from Newfoundland, all of which we'll be attempting to photograph while we're here.
All right, so this is probably my favorite studio to photograph, but the conditions right now, as you can tell, that overcast that I talked about earlier is coming in, and if it's not obvious on the screen, it is very windy. My eyes are watering, my nose, well, you don't want to know, and I don't necessarily think these are the conditions I want for this shot because it's kind of the same as I took last time, but ideally, my goal is the sun sets somewhere on the right hand of the frame. And I want to take a shot as the sun is setting and get some beautiful colors in the sky with this in the foreground. But the point is, we're going to come back to this in this episode to try to make that shot happen. So I'm not going to focus too much on getting anything crazy right now, but I'll show you a shot that I take anyways. And I kind of want to get out of this wind because it's very windy.
Well, just in Newfoundland fashion, with the turn of a page, the clouds have come in, the rain is sideways, it's cold, so I'm gonna sit inside Ross here, watch something on the iPad, and enjoy the afternoon this way. Hopefully this clears up in a couple hours and we get some really nice conditions after this rain. Maybe a rainbow. Cross your fingers.
For the next 3 hours, I snacked, lounged, drove around, and hoped the clouds would clear for a sunset.
Look at that. Look at that. A little bit of blue sky. But for now, ice cream.
After some of the best homemade ice cream money could buy, well, it wasn't looking too good. Maybe I should go back and get some more ice cream. Or wait, how about a rainbow?
Hey, let's go!
Years ago, I was sitting at a friend's childhood home, lounging on the couch, and I decided to pick up one of their coffee table books to pass the time. It was a big book, and I mean big book, on some form of Scandinavian architecture, which was appropriate considering my friend's parent was an architect. The book likely caught my attention because of the photography, but I must admit my memory is pretty faint, and it was a fleeting moment of just flicking through this book, yet I remember one thing very specifically, the words Newfoundland in the book. At the time, I probably couldn't have even told you where Newfoundland was on a map. Heck, I'm not even sure I knew it was in Canada. Fast forward to my first trip here, and admittedly, I had done zero research, which is kind of how I travel if I can get away with it. Just go and see what I can find. The first time I came over the hill to the Squish studio, it was like deja vu. I knew this building, but how? Why did I recognize this strange building that's located on an island of a place that I knew nothing about? And then it hit me, in giant bold-faced font, Newfoundland. It's as if I had manifested myself to find one of those magical spots I had flipped past in that big coffee table book. It almost felt serendipitous.
Okay, while we did get that nice rainbow, the clouds have come back in, and I don't think we're gonna get the sunset that we were hoping for, but I'm gonna go up here over the hill into the wind. In the wind, it's pretty frigid, so cross your fingers. This is what the clouds are looking like right now. So there's a little sun poking through, but maybe like a long exposure or something once we get up here. I have to wait and see. I'm just not looking forward to the gust of winds once I get over this hill. Here we go. All right, so we've got this shot set up, setting on the tripod, ready to go. This is the shot that I want. The light is, well, it's dramatic, but it's pretty blocked. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna walk down to these rocks down here. I know this spot pretty well from scouting it for my guide here on photographing Fogo Island, which will be linked down below the like button if you're interested or ever coming here. But I'm gonna go down there and look at what those compositions look like because they use the waves in part of the building, and then this is the background. So I get the choice of, if this doesn't happen, I could run down there and take a few shots as well, depending on where the light hits in the sky. It's kind of happening back there, so maybe we'll get something. But for now, I'm gonna really quickly run down there and see what it's looking like in all this, with all these waves. Okay, so the shot down by the rocks wasn't doing it for me, because as you can tell, the light back there is pretty dull in comparison to the light we're getting right here. So I've got my main camera set up on an interval timer, taking my shot every 30 seconds so I can walk away with my other camera and find maybe a few other unique, fun shots, and it'll get the light that I want even if it happens while I'm gone. Trying trying to find maybe some different compositions because there's way more plant life here this time around. And that color is really nice. If you see, it really contrasts really well, this red and green with the blue of the ocean and the white building. It all just kind of really comes together, so I'm trying to find a nice composition of that shot. But it looks like the light is kind of fading away right now, but you never know what's really going to happen. It looks like it could maybe poke through. Have to wait and see till we get on the computer, as usual. But the evening's not over, so stay tuned. All right, so we didn't get the exact conditions I came here for, but I definitely got way better conditions this time than I did the last time I was here. The last trip that I came here, I didn't get a single sunrise or sunset, basically. I think I got one sunset and then it was basically just rained out or overcast. So just getting some nice color in the clouds here was much better than the last time I was here. Really glad I got to shoot this. I will show you at least one of these shots. I'm taking a few long exposure bulb shots right now. None of these are long enough. Let's do did 1.5 minutes here. We're gonna try 2.5 minutes. Might have to decrease the ND that's on there right now, just for fun. I think obviously I already got the shot and stuff that I'll show you, but it's already set up. The clouds are really cool because they're moving towards me, just having a little fun while I'm out here anyways. And if you're enjoying this content, be sure to check out my print folio that's gonna be linked down below the like button. It's how I'm gonna commemorate this particular trip, this journey that not only I'm on at this point, but if you've been watching up to this far in, you're also on this journey with me. It's gonna be 5 images printed on fine art paper, all hand signed, limited run. It's gonna come with a signed Polaroid from this trip, personalized, and I'm gonna do pre-orders and basically do a limited run up into however many pre-orders I get. All the details will be linked down below. It's gonna be about $150. You can leave it in the little print folio case that it comes in, put on a shelf and bring it out when you want to, or you can have 1 or 2 or all of them framed in a way that, you know, sings to your heart. Especially if you've been investing your time and energy into this, and it's a great way to help support me on this journey. Put gas in Ross's tank and put gas in my tank, and I'm really excited for it because printing is what this is all about. The final form is not the images you see on the screen. It's always with a print in mind. So check that out down below, and yeah, here's this image. Maybe it'll end up in the print folio. Probably not, but maybe.
Good morning, everyone. It is way too early. I am half asleep, but the sun is coming up. There's not a cloud in the sky, but we're gonna go photograph or at least fly the drone for the hotel. That's the shot we're doing this morning. It's the one that makes the most sense for sunrise, and probably gonna get something pretty nice. And then I'm very much looking forward to it. I'm going back to sleep because probably fell asleep at, I don't know, 1 o'clock last night. So we're on 3 hours. Whew. All right. Here we go.
Kleon writes, "Build your own world," in big letters to start off chapter 7. He goes on to write, "I grew up in the middle of a cornfield in southern Ohio. When I was a kid, all I wanted to do was get someplace something was happening. Now I live in Austin, Texas, a pretty hip place. Tons of artists and creative types everywhere. And you know what? I'd say that 90% of my mentors and peers don't live in Austin. They live everywhere. I know them from the internet, which is to say most of my thinking and conversation and art-related fellowship is online. Instead of a geographical art scene, I got Twitter buddies or Google Reader. You don't have to live anywhere other than the place you are to start connecting with the world you want to be in. If you feel stuck somewhere, or if you're too young or too old or too broke, or if you're somehow tied down to a place, take heart. There's a community of people out there that you can connect with. In the meantime, if you're not into the world you live in, you can build your own world around you. Surround yourself with books and objects that you love. Tape things up on the wall. Create your own world." Reflecting on these words makes me wonder what it was ever like to be a photographer in a disconnected world, where my friends and peers aren't a text message away, where I can't open a web page to see a wall of different locations that I want to see instantly through the eyes of other photographers, or endlessly scroll past thousands of locations that I'd love to visit. Maybe I wouldn't be so distracted, but then again, Maybe I'd never made it here at all. Speaking of community, if you're ever looking for a small little community of photographers to chat with, ask questions, or anything like that, come say hello in our Discord channel. It's a great little spot, and I'd love to have you there.
What's in my head, falling free like a simple song by ecstasy. It won't let up, on and on and familiar.
All right. After about an hour and a half of shooting, the light is too harsh at this point. There's not any clouds in the sky or anything. And that's my cue to go back to bed.
There are 4 studios located on the island where local Newfoundland artists can serve residencies of periods of time to work on their projects. Local craftsmen and builders were actively involved in the construction process of these studios, further integrating the architecture into the fabric of the community. Each of them have unique designs that all integrate into their natural surroundings and seem to be strategically placed within the island to help visitors like me naturally explore the small communities scattered around the area. Each of them are easily accessible, yet just out of the way enough to feel uniquely secluded. The Tower Studio stands taller than the rest, and sticks out as you can likely tell via its geometric design. The Squish Studio, as you saw previously, almost resembles an iceberg in its design, which uniquely blends the natural landscape of Newfoundland with modern architectural design. The Bridge Studio sits secluded, yet included into the landscape of a small mountain plateau on the other side of the island. While all of these make for great and unique photography opportunities, the true beauty of the island is definitely the people. The problem is, I'm not a people photographer. It's a lot easier for me to yell at a camera next to a building than it is to talk to another person. There's a lot of culture here, and to this day you can pick up on customs and dialects from their dominantly Irish and English heritage. Sometimes that dialect is so strong, I can't even actually understand what's being said. For example, I met Roy Dwyer last year, who quite literally invited me into his home, introduced me to his wife, and talked to me about the island that he loves so much. And he writes about that in his books. His accent was so thick sometimes that I could barely understand what he was saying.
You want him to his wife and I for oyster seconds where you go sailing. It's a part of his occupation. And,
Something I still kind of struggle with all over Newfoundland, but there was no confusion about their generosity and hospitality. One morning, as I was driving around, I saw a woman selling her handmade quilts right from her front porch. Newfoundland is known for handmade quilts, along with many other textiles, as I imagine there's a lot of time spent indoors during their long winters. I pulled over and I decided to say hello. An interaction I would have loved to have gotten on camera to share with you, but sometimes I just have to leave the camera and enjoy the experience for myself. Sorry about that. We chatted. She invited me in for breakfast and tea, to which I declined as I was busy filming this video. And after learning that I lived on the road, she even invited me in for a shower. My goodness, what a sweet lady she was. Even though I'm not a people photographer, I kindly asked her if I could take her picture, to which she graciously said yes. She also wouldn't let me leave empty-handed, and I was now the proud owner of some handmade puffin coasters. What an absolutely lovely experience. And if you ever get to visit Newfoundland, you'll be continually reminded of the generosity of the people. So while I'm showing you what I personally know best, the landscapes, it's really the people that make this place so beautiful.
Okay, we've made it to the top, and I, just for transparency's sake, did wait to film this until I caught my breath again. This particular hike, I didn't do the last time I was here, just because the last time I was here, I remember being really sad and just in a state of being on the road for, I think at that point, 7 months, 6 months, a long time. And it was rainy and there was fire smoke for some reason all the way up here. And I was just done. I didn't have the motivation to really do a whole lot. And I got stuck on the island because the ferry broke down. It doesn't matter. I just remember being a grumple stillskin, if you will. So I'm glad I came back and did this hike, had some lunch down there, It's a beautiful day, and cross your fingers that it's a nice sunset and it doesn't just get completely blocked by clouds. I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but there's about 700 mosquitoes flying around my head right now. One of the downsides of it warming up and not being windy, as these guys come out, reminds me very much of Alaska. I'm hoping that when we get over here to shoot, it'll be a little bit windier on the rocks. Oh, Jesus. They seem to be getting a little bit lighter. I don't have a black cloud above my head at the moment. I don't necessarily know how much we're gonna get for sunset this evening. And I guess depending on how miserable I am while waiting for something maybe to happen, my finger is very itchy right now. One really got me. Please stop biting me. All right, so we're actually getting some really decent color in the clouds right now, even though we're probably about almost an hour from sunset, maybe 40 minutes. But last year, when I took this shot, I was right down there, I believe. You can see all of these lines here in the rocks. Well, hopefully you can see them. And using those lines, it basically creates a very wide shot to where the lines are pointed this way up to the hotel up here. Get out of here, mosquito. And then you have this line of the hotel receding back into the image. And it just kind of creates a really cohesive image. Basically, it just brings everything together, makes your eye all look in the same direction, and then brings you through the image. As you've probably noticed from all of the images that I'm trying to take of these structures, this one included, is that the landscape is part of the architecture. I don't want to just take kind of abstract or subjective shots of just the architecture if I can help it, because most of the shots that I really enjoy are how the building sits naturally in the landscape. And one of the ways is having all these diagonal lines pointing to the hotel. It creates just a really unique shot and also brings everything together, makes the landscape one with the building. Okay, so we've moved spots, and I just wanted to update you on what's going on with the clouds. It's looking less and less likely we're going to get anything for sunset. But in terms of this shot, there's our little rock down there, although you can see it way more in this exposure. But the shot is actually from way down here, shooting up. And there's a reflection, and it's a little bit wider, and that's basically the shot. Also, it just started raining a little bit. That's Newfoundland for you. But I think this is the better shot, regardless if we get good conditions or not, because at the very least I can take a long exposure here and hopefully create some nice atmosphere, maybe the clouds moving really fast past the hotel, and just plunk her down here and get like a really cool wide angle shot. And that'll also smooth out the water here. And it makes it where I get something regardless of the conditions or not. But if, for example, the sun does happen to poke out, we will get some light up here on the hotel, and it'll be gorgeous because it'll reflect down here on this little pond as well. So I'll have to stay tuned for that. Thankfully, the mosquitoes have died down a little bit because of the wind and the temperature is dropping. But other than that, it's a game of just waiting around. That's landscape photography for you. So if you're here and you don't shoot photography, and you're like, I don't care about all this, well, I appreciate you being here, but this is kind of a little insight into what it takes to get some of the photos that you might see either in my portfolio or anyone else's. All right, so the camera's going right now. I have my tripod in reverse, which surprisingly, this is the first time I've ever done that. I cannot remember the last time I reversed my tripod. Let's put it that way. The thing is, if I'm not this low, basically this little triangle doesn't fit in the right spot in the composition, and it just doesn't work. It's just a little bit too out of place if I don't bring the camera down low enough. So that's what I had to do. I'm currently taking a 2.5 minute exposure. I have a 6-stop ND filter, Maven filter, that I'll have linked down below if you're interested in a set of filters. They're my personal recommendation. I'm trying to wait long enough to where these lights that you can see in the hotel get captured within the image. Obviously, I'm dealing a little bit with the fact that the lake is always going to be a little bit darker than the sky. In a single exposure, it's hard to get both. Get out of here, mosquito. But I think we got it. And I'm not too overly thrilled about the image. This is what the sunset ended up looking like. Basically nothing, too many clouds. But we made the best of it, and we took this image that I liked last time that I think is going to be better this time just because the light is a little bit different. And something else that's really interesting is all of this stuff right here was like this golden brown last time, whereas right now it's more of a white and green. So a little bit of a difference. But, oh, the image just finished. I'll show it to you now, or any other images that I enjoyed this evening. And then I'll see you for sunrise tomorrow, hopefully. Later. Hope you're enjoying. Thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in. And thanks for being here.
Chapter 10 of Kleon's book starts with big, bold, handwritten font of choose what to leave out. He writes, "In this age of information, abundance, and overload, those who get ahead will be the folks who figure out what to leave out so that they can concentrate on what really matters and is important to them. Nothing is more paralyzing than the idea of limitless possibilities. The idea that you can do anything is absolutely terrifying."
All right, so this studio name is Long Studio. I know, super original. But to play on that fact, I have my other camera set up down here doing, I'm gonna let you guess, it's been a common theme this video, long exposure, because we're at the Long Studio. I've been alone for too long. Well, the biggest thing is on a long exposure like this, you want to have a lot of clouds in the sky because you want that movement through the long exposure to be a pretty prominent part of the image. So over here, obviously the camera's here, down here, and shooting up a little bit so it gets more of those clouds. But then you'll also notice in the image, it's basically right at the angle of the building to where you can still see a bit inside, and then also the white. And all of these clouds are moving towards it. Right now I'm just trying to get the exposure correct to where I can get the clouds and this black building all in the same exposure. And if you can probably guess, exposing a 2.5 minute exposure means slightly a bit of trial and error. Okay, so the last time I was here, this studio was probably my least favorite. All right, well, this shot isn't necessarily working because of all this debris down here. But I gotta be honest with you guys, I'm not really feeling inspired today, photography-wise. But I'm now thinking that maybe that was just the mood that I was in, because coming back to it this time, I'm spending more time trying to get some of these abstract angles, thinking in black and white with contrast, and obviously this being fixed up and not having that damage like it did last time. I actually think this is one of the more interesting ones to photograph from an architectural standpoint. However, the big difference is this one doesn't sit on the landscape in such a cohesive way like the other ones felt like they do. So this one I'm focusing more on like the architectural photography of it, barely getting basically no landscape in it unless you count that little window of sky in the images that I'm taking right now. So I'm basically removing that element and focusing more on the angles rather than focusing on, you know, it sitting on this landscape and what that looks like. So it doesn't really go well or as well with the other ones or the concept I had for those images together. But individually, in a vacuum, just photographing this and thinking about the angles and how all the lines are and trying to make sure everything is straight and this funky design actually is pretty cool. It's pretty fun. So that's kind of what I'm focusing on now. I'm letting go of that idea of must be in the landscape and that's the image that I'm going for, and more just letting myself have the creative freedom to look around for different types of shots that don't necessarily have to have the landscape in them. Okay, so I was about to pack it up and get going, and then I noticed as the sun peered through the clouds once, these shadows came out, and it created even more interesting compositions because it added more lines using negative space or the shadow areas within the images. So now I have the great enjoyment of sitting here and waiting for the sun to just come out enough to create some lines of shadow. For the most part, it's pretty even light, but that's actually a good thing because, for example, if right now there was no clouds in the sky and it was just direct harsh light, it would be too harsh. A lot of this area wouldn't be illuminated. It would just be really, really harsh light and shadows, and it probably wouldn't turn out too well. So this in between of having to wait for the sun to come through just enough to create some actual lines, like you're actually seeing them right here as I'm filming, which means I should probably grab my camera, but there's just enough to create these shadows in the image. However, it's diffused enough that it also is still illuminating the rest of the scene, meaning that I can actually capture everything in a single image and get the contrast that I want while also getting the details I want because of that more diffused light. Also, it's not cold at all. I'm actually sweating in this. It's just that this is protecting my big forehead from getting some sun. Oh, the shadows are out. I gotta go.
Kleon writes, "The way to get over creative block is to simply place some constraints on yourself. It seems contradictory, but when it comes to creative work, limitations mean freedom. Write a song on your lunch break. Paint a painting with only one color. Start a business without any startup capital. Shoot a movie on your iPhone with a few of your friends. Build a machine out of spare parts. Don't make excuses for not working. Make things with the time, space, and materials that you have right now. The right constraints can lead you to your very best work." My favorite example? Dr. Seuss wrote The Cat in the Hat with only 236 different words. So, his editor bet him that he couldn't write a book with only 50 different words. Dr. Seuss came back and won that bet with Green Eggs and Ham, one of the best-selling children's books of all time. The artist Saul Steinberg said, "What we respond to in any work of art is the artist's struggle against his or her limitations. It's often what an artist chooses to leave out that makes the art interesting. What isn't shown versus what is. It's the same for people. What makes us interesting isn't just what we've experienced, but also what we haven't experienced. The same is true when you do your work. You must embrace your limitations and keep moving. In the end, creativity isn't just the things we choose to put in, it's also the things we choose to leave out." Wherever you are in your journey, don't let restrictions hold you back. Sometimes I think about my photography and realize the times I've likely enjoyed the most are when I created with what I had instead of focusing on what else I might need. Chronologically, right after this Newfoundland trip, I spent weeks traveling across the US shooting with a fixed lens Fuji X100VI and not allowing myself to edit anything. That challenge rekindled a bit of the joy I was missing in my photography over the past year. Now, I didn't go creating Green Eggs and Ham, but damn, was it revitalizing. Oh, and of course, I made a video if you want to watch that too.
All right, well, I hope you enjoyed those images. I've had a very long day. That wasn't supposed to be this long. I got here at 1 o'clock to get on this ferry. It is now 10 p.m. and I'm now on the ferry because it broke down, which is ironic because the last time I was on Fogo Island, the ferry broke down. I had to wait till the next day. And this time I was like, I want to get there earlier. And well, here we are, stuck. And I don't know what I did to deserve this, not this, but the fact that this is the sunset as I'm getting onto the ferry. We didn't get any of this when we were here to take the photos. So I don't know, maybe I committed a sin, committed a crime, something to not only get delayed almost 10 hours, but also this sunset is just, I would have killed for this sunset any of the nights we were here. But I'm happy to be on the boat because, well, let's just say the next adventure is going to be really special, but I'm not going to spoil it. I'll just give you a hint. Let's just say that I won't be the only one in the video, and you'll have to tune in next week or whenever this comes out to check it out. Anyways, it has been a long day. I sat and waited for the ferry, hoping that I would get on. Thankfully, I got on, just barely. And I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's always an adventure. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being here. There's got to be a rainbow out there somewhere. We even got one on this episode. And I'll see you on the next one. Later.